got to be ready.
Let's hit it.
And here we go.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Eternal Void, but with jazz. We're here today with Red Pill Junkie, and we're your hosts, Gabby and
Michelle, hey.
Hey. So, Red Pill Junkie is an agnostic Gnostic, walking conundrum, and metaphysical oxymoron, with emphasis on the moron part. The mysterious RPJ leads a double life. By day, he serves as Grand Master in the International Sacred Order of Lucha Libre. But at night, he pursues his lifelong study of everything considered mysterious and or paranormal, a term he personally detests. When he's not exploring the web looking for his daily fix of Fortiana, he can be found making artsy stuff, fooling around on social media, or offering his services as writer and news administrator at the Daily Grail, dailygrail.com. He also regularly participates in other websites and podcasts like Radio Misterioso and Where Did the Road Go? He impatiently awaits for the return of the mothership or nuclear Armageddon in Mexico City, whichever comes first. Hi, Red Pill Junkie. How are you doing today? And welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Gracias. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
That might be one of my favorite introductions ever. Did you?
It was so fun reading it.
Yeah, I wrote it a long time ago. I think the first time someone asked me, "Oh, we need a bio." Like a what?
All right. My first question, just off that introduction, is I'd like to know a little bit about the International Sacred Order of Lucha Libre.
Yes.
As much as it sounds like a secret society, so as much as publicly available.
Well, here's the thing. Many moons ago, I want to say 2012, 2011, I was working in this very small architectural firm in which I used to spend a lot of long nights working, creating architectural renderings. They take a long time just to prepare them, and then you need to leave the machine, turn on, working on it, hours, days, sometimes even weeks on end. Two co-hosts, and it was a really fun time because the chat room, when people were listening to the show, was very, very live and engaging. So there were a group of regulars which I think he recorded on Wednesdays. We logged in, listened to the show, chatted on the chat room, and Micah and his friends used to interact with those. Matt Oakley was one of them. I don't remember the name of the other one. The thing is that at one point, Micah came up with the idea of the Paradigm Symposium that they were going to organize in Minneapolis with Scotty Roberts. Because back then there was all this notion about the Mayan calendar and the end times, right? December 28th, 2012. There was a lot of discussion about that. Most of that really not taking it that seriously. And Micah and Scotty came up with, okay, if the world's going to end, we might as well go with a bang. So let's organize this end of the world party. It's going to be like a reunion, a get together with all our friends and people, and we're going to have conferences and we're going to have discussions. And obviously we're going to go and hit the bar. It's going to be great. And I was in Mexico and I was like, damn, and I really need to go. I really need to find a way to go there. And Micah's friends, they were used to joke around because they didn't know me at the time. I hadn't put a photograph of me right on the web. I was very secretive about that. And they used to joke about that. Oh, maybe Miguel will arrive to Minneapolis wearing a lucha libre mask. And I was, okay, that sounds fun. And I actually went to the place near Arena Mexico, this place where you have the lucha libres, where you can get professional grade lucha libre mask. And I picked one out, red one, obviously, that I saw one that was comfortable, because these things are really, really uncomfortable. They're so tight, you can barely speak. So I chose one with an open cut that will let me my mouth open. And yeah, I pulled the stunts. Like I arrived to the hotel lobby. I still can't believe that I actually managed to do that, because you guys, I'm extremely shy as a person. I'm not really comfortable in gatherings with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And at the time, the lobby was like, do I do this? Yes or no? I was like, screw it. I put on the mask and I walked in there, 6'4" guy walking to the table where people were, signing to get their pass for the conference. I still remember the face of the girl who was at the table, like, can I help you? And it was like, yeah, I'm looking for Micah. Oh, he's there. The conference just started, so he's there, like introducing Scotty and introducing Linda Howe or something like that. So okay, well, I'll wait there. And then Micah came out, and I had prepared a whole performance that I took up a piece of paper, and I started like reading the paper, and like, hello, Micah. I'm very happy to be here in the United States, finally meeting you. Yeah, and then I tossed the paper and I gave him a big bear hug, and that was that. That was the beginning of that idea of Red Pill Junkie is the secret luchador wearing this lucha libre mask, and it became almost like a meme, because Micah's brother Caleb, back then, he created like a web comic about me and themselves, because Micah was also using the idea that they were recording in a bunker, like hundreds of miles below the surface. So it became a really dumb and funny story, and I decided to roll with that, and obviously I don't wear the mask nowadays, like I said, it's very uncomfortable, but I stuck with the idea, and yeah, I guess it became part of my personality. It became almost like a shamanic transformation. Sometimes I really think that that's the thing that I wanted to achieve with all that. It's almost like a ritual in which I will start to become Red Pill Junkie in real life, because I noticed how my interactions online were very different than how I usually behave around people in real life. I felt I was more interesting. I felt I was more tolerant. I felt I was more engaging instead of being reserved and jumping to anger. So there was this ritual that I wanted to create in order to almost like transform into this virtual persona that was closer to how I want to be most of the time,
Yeah. Wow.
That is so cool. I love that story. And I love how, you kind of created this persona that lets you kind of showcase this other side of yourself, that you really like embody this role. And, like with the masks and everything, even though you don't like wear it anymore, it's sort of like you've internalized the mask. Mm-hmm. You can put it on and take it off at will, even though you're not physically engaging with it. That's so cool.
Yeah. And Gabby and I were trying to do a little research, to prepare late last night. And we did a little we did some search engine searches for the International Sacred Order of Lucha Libre, and of course it didn't bring anything up, but these search engines have their AI now, and something kind of intersecting here, and like generally will not boost AI or talk about AI positively, but in this case, it did bring up the sacred mask tradition, and it said the mask is viewed as an extension of the wrestler's soul. Yeah, so I feel like that needs to be read based on like the story you just told us. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely that idea of in Mexico the luchadores, the ones that wear the mask, are supposed to always keep their secret identity, unless they get defeated by a contender, and then they have to take off the mask, and people say, "Oh, is that guy so and so who used to go by another wrestler's name," and then they have to stop wearing that mask forever. Maybe they'll come back a few years later, you wearing another mask, and they'll create another persona. So there's definitely the part of that tradition that has turned more and more popular nowadays, especially around foreign visitors. Now, it used to be that, like many things, Lucha Libre was like a lowbrow entertainment for the masses. But then because of influences like Quentin Tarantino or Jack Black, Nacho Libre, and all that, it started to get more popular outside of Mexico, to the point that if you go to around Mexico, chances are like at a given event, 30% of the attendees are going to be foreign tourists that just want to go there, and it's a cool experience. I took Greg Bishop back in 2019 when the pandemic was about to start.
Right.
And like when he returned to the United States, that's when the borders closed. So he got back just in time. But I took him to one of those Arena Mexico events, and it's really interesting. If you get into that vibe, because obviously it's all performance and it's all just an act. But if you get into that, accepting the what do you call this, the covfefe or whatever, it's really fun. And you can see like people from all walks of life and all ages. Like grannies, like screaming, "Yeah, kill him! Yeah!" And
that,
yeah,
go ahead.
and obviously the acrobatics of these guys. These guys are top performers and athletes, and they do these acrobatics that are actually dangerous if they don't know how to land, so that they don't hurt themselves or the other guy. But yeah, I will recommend it to anyone visiting Mexico. If you had chance, go. Check it at least once, one of these lucha libres.
That sounds amazing. I would love to visit Mexico and check that out.
Right? It sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, just all kinds of warm and tinglies thinking about it. So kind of backing up a little bit. So you were at the architectural firm and you were listening to like Micah Hank's show.
Mm-hmm.
The Gralien Report around 2012. That was about the same time I started getting back into paranormal media after a little bit of time away. Like I started really looking into paranormal media like when the internet was first a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I noticed like I'd fallen down like some right-wing pipelines, and I was like, well, this isn't good. I came here for UFOs, not like, other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I stepped away for a long time and then came back to it probably around that time. And that was really like, Micah Hanks, Greg Bishop, Where Did the Road Go? Like all of those were like really great shows at that time. And I'm honestly not even sure if they're still around. I hope a lot of them are. I guess Greg is Radio Mysterioso, right?
Yeah, although he's kept the show on pause for at least, I want to say, 4 years
Oh, really?
or longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been meaning to like return to it eventually, and he's also has. I know he has shows, recorded that he never put on the air. That he's been meaning to upload interviews with the late Chris O'Brien, things like that were never released back then, because Greg, like you guys, you know about this, you're podcasters too. You know, there is a level of perfectionism with podcasting when you say, the levels of audio aren't great, and I can listen to this static noise, and I need to clean this up, and all the ohs and ums, and when I went and burped or something like that, and because of that, then you take longer to clean up something, or you like Greg did, you just put it on hold indefinitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that Greg, every time that I listen to him on one of those regular shows, he keeps saying that he wants to go back to Radio Misterioso. But at the same time, I understand how people get the need to take a sabbatical out of the
Right.
paranormal from time to time. I think that's actually healthy, because otherwise, you really risk either getting in a very dark mood, or getting very cynical about it, like saying, turns out everything is BS, right? This case was debunked, this other case was a hoax, and this other person keeps popping up, and we know that he's full of it. And probably one of the reasons that people eventually turn into hardcore skeptics, because at one point in their lives they were believers and they got disillusioned, and then they turn to the other side. Not better zealot than a disappointed, late convert. And then there's also the danger of falling into the paranoia, right? Mm-hmm. Which is another danger for people who get too invested into this, and letting the paranormal become the basis of your whole persona. Like saying, right. I am so-and-so, and I am a guy who believes in UFOs, and I'm the guy who believes in Bigfoot, and I'm the guy who believes in the Patterson-Gimlin. And if that is the basis of your whole identity, then you will feel the need to defend that identity with nails and teeth, mm-hmm. and putting your line in the sand, and putting on your flag, and says, this is where I'll make my stand. And I don't think that's a healthy attitude either. I will recommend people to be, like I said, be a little bit more agnostic, trying to adopt the philosophy of people like Robert Anton Wilson, like saying, okay, yeah, by all means, study these topics, get fun with it, but don't take them that seriously. Be a little more lighthearted about it. Be a little more learn to make fun of yourself. Retain a healthy sense of humor. Otherwise, it is going to be more deleterious to your personality and to your mental health than providing nourishment for your continuous learning, or for your growth, mental, philosophical, spiritual as a person, right? One needs to know how to approach these topics. Otherwise, you risk, burning because of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I noticed you've got a painting behind you. We're on Zoom for those listening of the ocean. And I was just thinking, like, while you were talking, like, yeah, the ocean's really fun to play in and you can like become a strong swimmer, but you've got to take some breaks on the shore every now and then.
For sure.
Otherwise, you're not going to become a strong swimmer. You're going to become a drowning victim.
Great analogy. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You did bring up one other thing, and I think everything you just said was like, the thesis for everything I want to bring to the podcast. But I want to ask one more question, and then Gabby, I'll hand the mic to you. You mentioned the Patterson Gimlin film, and I understand there's some stuff going on with the Patterson Gimlin film right now. I don't know the details. Would you, to the best of your knowledge, would you care to like kind of educate all of us what's going on with that?
Right. So recently at a film festival, the South by Southwest Film Festival in Texas, I guess, there was this presentation of a new documentary capturing Bigfoot. I don't remember the name of the filmmaker, but it really started to make a lot of buzz online. I first read about it via Facebook, like people saying, well, so Patterson Gimlin film has been proven to be a hoax. So I was like, what? And then I started to realize, so supposedly the people behind this documentary, and one of them is the son of Roger Patterson, who was one of the two guys who, in 1967, allegedly stumbled upon, this Sasquatch creature that was, hanging around at a clear in Bluff Creek, California. And then, as the legend goes, the horse Roger was riding, like reared up, and he fell to the ground, and then he quickly tried to get a hold of the camera he was keeping in his satchel, and then started rolling. Right.
Okay.
I don't know how many seconds. I want to say 30 seconds, maybe a little bit more of that film that has become like iconic. Like even people who don't believe in Bigfoot, who don't care about Bigfoot, have seen that sequence at least once in their life because it's prevalent. It's become, because of that, I guess, like my friend Tim Binnell says, Sasquatch became something of an American folk saint, which is really interesting from a cultural mythology perspective. But okay, so getting back,
coffee coaster right here.
Exactly, don't stop believing. I love it. So getting back to Roger Patterson's son, apparently they found hidden in a vault that was locked for decades the literal dress rehearsal of testing the purported monkey suit that they used in the real film or the final film. With someone, there's a guy who's been saying that he was the guy in the suit in the PG film, the guy by the name of Bob Hieronymus. Supposedly this isn't Bob Hieronymus, it's another person, but because the film hasn't reached any distribution deals, barely anyone has seen it, aside from the people who actually saw it at that film festival. And as I understand it, they were going to present it in other Bigfoot conferences, but at the last minute they decided to, scrap it because I assume they are fearing that people will go concealing a camera or something, and they will manage to take the few seconds of will pretty much lose the main appeal of the film. It's like, because people who are interested in this, well, I want to see it. I want to see if it's real or not. So there's this divided opinion of people who say, well, case closed, this is over, bye-bye, Patty. And other people say, wait a minute, this could be AI, or this could be, even if it's not AI, this could be other thing that Roger Patterson was testing. Maybe they were thinking about using a monkey suit, but then they actually managed to find a real Bigfoot, very trickster-like thing that is very common. Not only in Bigfoot research, but pretty much in all these phenomena. And Roger Patterson himself was a bit of a trickster character, a guy who got in a lot of legal money problems, like renting the camera and then keeping the camera longer than the rental contract, getting a problem with that. And then after the film started to get traction, and he started to attain a little bit of fame because of that. He got cancer, and he died no longer afterwards. It's almost like this idea that Native Americans have that getting a glimpse of Bigfoot is not necessarily a good thing. It's kind of like a curse or something that you have to be careful. It's like almost similar to what happens in Celtic countries where people see the Fae, you've seen a Fae in the forest is not necessarily something you are aspired to experience. So there's this divided opinion of what are the motives of Roger Patterson's son. Is this some kind of, I think that, I want to find a way to keep monetizing this legend, or because of family disputes? Bob Gimley, who apparently is in the film, some people say that, he's almost confessing that the film was a hoax in the documentary, but at the last minute, his wife almost shuts him off and says, "Don't say anything." Jeff Meldrum was one of those few scientists who took the Patterson-Gimley seriously, who died last year. He's in the film too, and supposedly he almost acquiesces and says, well, I guess the evidence is too big not to ignore. But the problem is that we no longer have Jeff to set the record straight. So, what do you think? Is this, what's going on here? Or is it something that the filmmakers edited to make it sound as if he's conceding the film is a hoax? Earlier this year, Greg Taylor and I had Lauren Coleman, who is a very renowned cryptozoologist, on our YouTube channel. And I asked Lauren, what do you think about the PG film? I know that, everybody asks you about it. And do you still think it is real or not? And Lauren was kind of almost exasperated, say, well, I'm 98% convinced that the film is real. And then no longer after that, this bombshell drops. And I'm still waiting for Lauren to make some public, stance about it through his social media, his X account or something. He hasn't yet. I guess he's either too busy doing other stuff, or he's quietly and smartly waiting for the film to be widely available, and say, let's wait up until I can actually watch this by myself to inform his own opinion. And I think that's also my point of view at this point. Greg Taylor, my partner and my colleague, he seems pretty willing to say, yeah, this probably puts the PG film to rest. I'm still not that convinced. Maybe I'm reluctant to give that up for emotional reasons. Like I grew up with reading about this, watching the documentaries, watching Harry and the Hendersons when I was a kid in the 1980s. So for romantic notions, I'm still hesitant to consider it was a hoax. But if the evidence is there, if I see the film and it convinces me, well, okay, I guess we'll have to move on and we'll have to accept the criticism of the skeptics, although we will have to remind skeptics that the whole notion or the whole premise about the existence of Bigfoot does not rely solely on this 60-year-old piece of film,
Right.
So there's that.
Yeah. And I think the skeptics, in my experience, also kind of miss the whole teleological aspect of it. Is like, well, it may or may not exist, but how did it affect the people who are interested in it, whether skeptical or believer or somewhere in between, right? And that's, yeah, for sure. Well, that's really interesting. That would be a big development. I can't wait to see if this video or this new film, gets distribution and we can all check it out.
Right. If anything else, it's interesting to see how, because of that, Bigfoot is back into the center of attention. Because for the last 9 years, it's all been UFOs, 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 disclosure. The tic tacs. And it's getting a little bit boring, to be honest. Like, if I get to see those grainy black and white videos one more time, I'm gonna barf. Enough with this already. Give me something else.
Yeah, totally get it. Yeah. Well, Gabby, I will pass the mic back to you. I've held it for a little while now. Please.
Yeah. I guess before we move on, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about, I guess, hoaxes in general and kind of like how we as a community should kind of like navigate these hoaxes. Because like Michelle said, like just because something isn't necessarily real doesn't mean that, it can't have a very real effect on people. And like, you mentioned, it's very possible that these hoax videos, they put the Bigfoot, impression in our minds.
Right.
And then people go out and then see their own Bigfoots. So I guess kind of like, what's your view on hoaxes in the community and kind of what should we do with them? How should we approach them?
Right. As most of us, when I was a kid and I was, learning about all of this, and you read books about the Loch Ness Monster, you see the famous surgeon photograph, black and white with the swan-like neck of the beastie coming out of the loch. And then years later, you say, oh, it was a hoax. Or you read about when I was a kid here in Mexico, because of Jaime Maussan, I was very impressed with Edward Billy Mayer, because Maussan was a producer in the Mexican version of 60 Minutes. He made a whole segment about Mayer, So watching those photographs that are very impactful, from a psychological point of view. There is this incredible contrast between seeing the Swiss landscape with the mountains, with the greenery of the pines, and then seeing this impossible thing glowing, this metal disc-shaped object. Even if, obviously, you learn later that Billy hoaxed them, very resourcefully, even though people thought he couldn't because he only has one arm. But that's the thing. But they're still very impactful. There's one of the reasons why later in the X-Files, the poster that Fox Mulder had on his basement office was that like a cropped off version of the Billy Myers ship, and saying, I want to believe. And we're still submitted to that because of Bob Lazar. His sports model is basically a Billy Meyer knockoff. So hoaxes, and this is something that it took me a long time to understand and to make peace with it, but hoaxes have a role to play in all of this. It's almost like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, like Frodo saying, we should get rid of him, like Bilbo should have killed him when he had a chance. And Gandalf is like saying, Gollum probably has a role to play in this tale that we don't understand yet. And I feel that hoaxes also, for better or worse, have a role to play in how the phenomenon manifests, how it influences culture, it influences the mindset of people, the expectations of people, as Gabby put, because obviously before the PG film, the idea of Bigfoot was different. Like people thought of Bigfoot, as Sasquatch and the Oma, as more of a wild man, closer to humans than to apes. But after the PG film, it was like, no, it's more ape than human. It's like it's almost like a cross between a gorilla and a gorilla with big stretchy legs, even with the sagittal crest and all that. And likewise, because of Billy Meyer and because of the hoaxes performed in the 1950s, this idea, cultural expectation about UFOs got cemented, in popular culture and in society in general. And when I read Jeffrey Kripal's book, Mutants and Mystics, it also helped me to understand how there's this cross-pollination between cultural influences, fiction, claims of the paranormal, and the phenomenon itself, that is so difficult to differentiate, and maybe we shouldn't. One example is Jack Kirby writing a comic book about astronauts finding a face on Mars in the early 1960s, and then the NASA scientists showing photographs from the Mariner expedition and saying, "Oh, isn't it funny, this play of light and shadow that makes you see things that aren't there?" And it was the famous Mars face photograph.
Yeah.
And that created the whole idea that, oh my God, Sidonia, there may be a city on Mars that is millions of years old. Richard Hoagland came into the scene. And then NASA kind of like tried to debunk the face by taking a second look using the Mars orbiter reconnaissance and showing, well, see, it's just an eroded hill, natural made. No, there was nothing to it. And there were still people like the late Mac Tonis who say, well, wait a minute, we shouldn't just jump to conclusions, because even if it is so eroded, but there is features about the face that are so symmetrical that demand closer attention. And Mac also used the examples of the pyramids in Peru that are made not with stone, but they were made with clay bricks. And they are like 5,000 years old. But if you see aerial photographs of them, right from the top, you will think that they're just natural features. There's just washed hills eroded by the winds and the rain. it will take an actual archaeologist digging around in the site to realize, oh, that this was actually made by humans. So it really makes you wonder, how is it that the phenomenon may be using hoaxes in order to almost like help it manifest itself, like almost like the old adage of cranking the pump.
Yeah.
There are other interesting cases in the literature, like, for example, I'm fascinated by the Humo cases that happened in the 1960s in Spain and France and Latin America. I guess it was bigger in those countries, less so in the United States. It was Jacques Vallée, when he wrote Messengers of the Sage Perception and the Invisible College, that brought the Humo case to the attention of the English-speaking public. But yeah, the idea about Humo is that there were those a group of extraterrestrials that were trying to contact people on planet Earth. They sent them letters, typewritten letters, with a very dry and a very highfalutin way of writing that really sounded like someone that coming from another planet trying to use our language to communicate with us. And also with all these scientific notions about the planet Humo and about the propulsion system of their ships. It was definitely different than what people were accustomed to. Like when people ask contactees, oh, so what is the mechanism, the propulsion system of the flying saucers? Like, well, they use a form of cosmic magnetism that, the energies of the universe, and this was so, basic and nonsensical. Well, like, okay, why don't you say they are magic, But the Humo letters, they really went into the nitty gritty, or like we discovered that there is a fundamental particle in the universe, and when we change the spin of it, it creates some form of tension in the gravity field, and so on and so forth. That even scientists, colleagues of Jacques Vallée, they took those letters seriously. And then there were also photographs of the supposed ships that were taken in Spain and other countries, showing this really weird, almost like the astrological symbol for the planet Uranus at the belly of the discs. Taken I want to say 1967. But then, as the years progressed, by the late 1990s, there was a guy. What was his name? I don't remember. He came pretty much confessed and said, "Well, yeah, it was a hoax. I hoaxed it."
Oh wow!
Yeah, but then it turned into a bigger mystery, because he says, yes, I hoaxed it, but I wasn't alone. I had the help of an intelligence agency, the CIA or something, that helped me make the hoax, that provided him with materials that were impossible to attain at the time in Spain, like radioactive sand, or a type of plastic that supposedly were left by these extraterrestrials at a site that they had visited, that it was impossible to obtain in Spain, but was a very advanced form of plastic that was developed by DuPont, only recently. So. And then other people say, well, wait a minute, but I saw one of those ships. I was like in Mexico, and I saw a ship that had the same, symbol. So what do you account with that? A Spanish investigator, Juan José Benítez, who is one of my heroes, he wrote a book about, he collected all these cases from all around the world, Brazil, South Africa, Mexico, where the symbol supposedly appeared. And there's also the same symbol that was present, supposedly present, in the famous Voronezh landing site that happened in, I want to say, 1990 in the former Soviet Union. So even Valles says, what's going on here? You know, why is it that a case that is a known hoax, but the symbol keeps appearing in real cases? You know, is it because, and this is one of the theories of Benitez, is it because someone in the government or in these intelligence agencies knew that the symbol was real, was trying to use it in order to create the disinformation, make it more convincing, or maybe it's a way for the phenomenon to prank us, right? Like saying, hey, you know, here's your fake symbol in a real case, you know, just to keep you guys thinking about it, you know, and knowing not knowing what's what. Or maybe it's a way to actually try to manifest out of fake cases real ones, almost like similar to the Conjuring Philip experiment that happened in Canada in the 1970s. You know, could it be possible?
Right.
And this is something that friends of mine, Susan Demeter, I don't know if you have had her. If not, you know, I would recommend her as a future guest for your podcast. Susan investigated UFOs for the Canadian government in the 1990s,
I had no idea.
and one of the experiments she wanted to try to test was to manifest a real UFO event out of a fake story. You know, could you try to conjure an alien entity the same way that these Vancouver parapsychologists try to conjure a ghost with a Philip story? You know, and Greg and Dana Newkirk in the Hellier documentary, they show that one of the experiments they did, in which one of their friends, they was put under hypnosis trance, and they almost kind of like tried to make him believe that he had been abducted by aliens. And then the guy was in such a state that said, well, maybe I was, you know, maybe I'm just remembering. It was a real mind screwing, you know, thing.
Yeah, I understand that was pretty traumatic for him, and I cannot recommend trying that or having anybody do that. That was
definitely.
Ethically pretty gray.
Ethically, it is quite questionable. I don't think that I applaud their decision, but nevertheless, it goes to show how is all these things get so blurry. The line between fact and fake, between the hoax and the genuine article, between things that are happening only in your mind or things that are actually affecting the outside world, get blurrier and blurrier and blurrier, and to the point that is so difficult to ascertain what's going on. You know, where do you draw the difference? Where do you say, well, here is the objective way to looking at it? Is there a truly objective way to looking at this phenomenon? And as I grow older, I remain more hesitant to actually answer that question. I don't know how to answer it. The world is no longer as black and white as I wanted it to be when I was 10 years old, and I wanted to believe in all these stories. And I haven't gone to the route of the cynical, bitter skeptic and saying, it's all a hoax. Nor can I afford to say, it's all real, because, you know, that's also disingenuous. So I'm trying to navigate this excluded middle path and trying to say, well, how to ascertain what is objectively real, what is ascertain what is just fabrications, and what is the role of the observer in all of this. It's not that is another example. Crop circles. When I was a kid, I used to believe in crop circles and say, well, yeah, sure, there's messages that are made by alien forces using, I don't know, magnetic fields, lasers, what have you, microwaves. They leave these messages that are maybe warnings, or there are maybe some kind of code. Then M. Night Shyamalan made that movie Signs. Now crop circles are apparently present in the upcoming Spielberg movie, The Day of Disclosure. So that's going to be interesting. And then as I grew older, I read about the guys actually making the crop circles and say, well, okay, it's all a hoax. But those guys saying, but yeah, we make them, but that doesn't mean that there are no other forces intervening here, that what puts the idea in their minds that they need to go and make a crop circle, and they spend the whole night there, and then they wake up and they realize there is a group of people like camping right next to them. And when they go and talk to those guys and say, yeah, we were praying and meditating and we were asking for a crop circle to appear in the field right next to us.
Yeah.
They're like, okay. And also those crop circle makers, they claim how sometimes they've been chased out of their fields by orbs of light, or they perceive weird time dilation, distortions. Like they are making a crop circle and they realize, oh crap, we need the sun is coming up, but we need at least another hour to finish this design. It's too bad. And then they keep working and there's a fog that comes into the field and they finish and they realize, it's still not, the sun up, it's still not morning.
Yeah.
So somehow they experience some type of time dilation. Like instead of 1 hour, they had 3 more hours to complete the circle. And so what's up with that? It's like, okay, but the thing is that ufologists don't want to listen to those accounts because, they were made by the crop circles, and the crop circles are the bodies because they are the forgers, right? It's the same silly notions why ufologists don't want to talk to the cryptozoologists, and the cryptozoologists don't want to talk to the gold researchers, and the gold researchers don't want to talk to the parapsychologists, and the parapsychologists just wants to keep working in his lab and not talk to anybody. It's just all this compartmentalization instead of looking at this phenomenon as probably facets of the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. And I think it also connects back to kind of like, your earlier point, right, about not taking this stuff too seriously, because if you're on like the train to like, this is 100% real, literal, like it's actually happening, then when it does come out as a hoax, it kind of blows up your whole worldview instead of, cracking it open even wider and making you look at it from, this very different perspective where like, sure, it's not literally real, but it's still important.
Right. It's kind of like a cosmic placebo effect.
Yeah.
Like you bring a religious image to someone, a sick patient, and you say, well, this was blessed by the Pope, and it was taken to this holy site where the Virgin appeared, and it is certain to deliver a miracle. And maybe the sick patient keeps it by their bedside, and they actually improve. And if you do tell them, well, actually it's not. It's something that I, printed on my home and took from the internet, and then they go and they have a relapse. I really wonder, how much of ourselves we put out there or is responsible for these manifestations. How much is like the poltergeist effect? I guess 90% of parapsychologists nowadays assume that poltergeist activity is the result of some type of uncontrolled psychokinetic effect manifested around someone, usually a younger person that is going through growing pains, the pains of adolescence and also puberty and all that. But how can also that manifest in some other means? Nowadays, I'm definitely struggling trying to decide whether there is actually an external intelligence out there that is trying to have a contact or an interaction with us, or if it's just us fooling ourselves with mirages that are created by our own subconscious, But at the same time, that doesn't mean that those mirages may not have tangible reality for a short period of time, and they could be powerful enough to leave an impression on the ground, leave a footprint in the forest, in the form of a big footprint, the same way that Catholic saints get wounds on their skin that mimic the wounds of Jesus on the cross, but only the wounds depicted in the paintings, right? Mm-hmm. In the religious paintings, because they're not historically accurate. Having a nail driven through the center of the palm of your hand is not the way that the Romans actually performed executions by crucifixion. That we know that by historical research, anatomical research, and yet the people still keep having those stigmata wounds coming through the center of the palm of their hands. Why? Is it because the angel of the Lord that is imposing that doesn't know any better? Or it's because of their own subconscious impulses, that are manifesting that wound.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the idea of like hyper sigils. So these kind of like fictional stories or comics, any kind of like art really, where it's literally a magical artifact designed to take that story and make it reality, make it real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We tried to do something like that ourselves when we were working as a team to create the ufology tarot project that we were involved in some years ago. The idea originally came from Greg Bishop. Years ago, he had this idea, wouldn't it be cool to have a tarot deck, but instead of the typical symbolic imagery, we will replace them with figures from the history of ufology. And once we were having this Zoom collective call, and he told us that idea, and he was like, wow, that sounds great, let's do that. And it fell upon me to the brunt of the work because I was the artist. And it was a lot of work. It was hard, but it was amazing, and there were moments in which a lot of really interesting, sometimes not interesting, but harrowing synchronicities resulted of that. Like one night, I was starting doing the death card, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look into the image of the card, instead of having the typical symbol of or the figure of death, like the Grim Reaper, I switched it to a man in black. Not the typical man in black as depicted in popular culture or in the men in black movies, but more like the ghoul type that Nick Redfern wrote about in his book. So it is a very tall, almost like a cadaver type of mask that has a really, really scary green, looking directly at the figures below. And I remember when I finished that drawing the face, of my cool MIB. It was late at night, and I decided to finish and turn it to go to bed. And I was very happy with myself. This came great, And then I was about to close my window and pull the curtains. And then when I put my hand to pull the cord of the curtain, I jumped back because I saw a really big spider inside my bedroom. Like, I have something of arachnophobia. And I thought, maybe this is like someone telling me that my idea of terror is pretty mundane compared to what real terror is all about. And I also, the idea of the high precision, I really tried to put a lot of hidden Easter eggs into the artwork. Things that I didn't share with the other guys, the other members of the team that I only know about, that I only know where I hid the bodies, and maybe one day someone, with patience and as magnifying glass will say, oh, this is where he put this and this symbol or the initials of this and this person, because trying to make something. Obviously, the goal of the project was to have as many people as possible using the cards. In that sense, the project was kind of a failure because we only printed a limited amount of cards through the crowdfunding campaign. Mm-hmm. So obviously, just a very limited amount of people, got to have one of them. I got to play with them. So it's not what we were wishing for. But at the same time, you have to take this philosophically, and say, well, it is what it is. You put the intention out there, and you keep your 100% of energy and passion to the project for a given amount of time, and then you have to give it up and release it into the world, and then it is what it is. And maybe 30 years from now, some people will say, oh my God, this thing. And that's when the project will get its audience. The same way that, maybe some kind of like a music band released on a single that was a bust, was never made it into the top charts, and then it's taken out of context or using the soundtrack of another movie, and it becomes a sensation. We've seen that a number of times. But it's part of the magic. You have to let it out there, let people encounter when they need to encounter it, I feel.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. As well, I was going to ask, so there's none of those decks left available for purchase, huh?
To my knowledge, no. I know that Greg left, he kept a few of them in his apartment. And then when people ask me and say, hey, can I purchase one of those decks? I'll say, well, please, send an email to Greg and see if there's one available, and I'm sure he'll, when he has the time, because obviously, Greg has many other things to do. he writes and he has this day job and he has his personal life. He'll be able to send a package to you by a post office. But yeah, that's one of the things that hopefully in the future we can try to remedy. Like maybe I tried to see if I could find a company, like a card making company, that will be interested in printing the cards,
Yeah.
And I tried to send, like emails showing the artwork and saying, well, this is a project that was of interest to a good number of people. I never got a reply. So and also the fact that the cards only reached the major arcana,
Yeah.
but the other part of the deck, to make it a full tarot deck, was still to be made at a second phase of the project, and we're still thinking about how we're going to replace like the cups and the wands, and what symbology, what kind of avenue we could use, and the other people that we could use in order to go and make these other cards, because they took a lot of time and preparation and discussion. Months and months and months of between all of us. Like, okay, what are we gonna do with the Chariot? Oh, let's go with Eric von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods. And said, well, we're really going to do that. And then, well, maybe let's go with John Mack. Okay, John Mack. And then, what about the John Mack? And then once we decided what character we're going to be using for each of the major arcana cards, deciding the setting and deciding the things that we wanted to include as the history of that person within the symbology of the cards, in order almost to make I don't know what would be the name for that. We really wanted something that will make even people interested with a little bit of knowledge about the history of ufology to go further and say, why did they put, I don't know, why did they put the Halley Comet atop the card corresponding to the Emperor? That is the card with J. Allen Hynek. Well, the reason is because, aside from the fact that J. Allen Hynek was an astronomer, he was born at the time when the Halley Comet came to Earth in 16, something like that. And he died not long after 1986 when the Halley Comet returned. So that was important for me to put, I want to put that little thing about Hynek that not everybody knows. So they could, get to know Hynek, not just as, Hynek, the ufology. Well, Hynek, the astronomer, Hynek, the person who was interested in Rosicrucianism, like Vallée.
Mm-hmm.
Hynek, who investigated Mars. Hynek, who was also involved with the whole swamp gas thing. That's why I put him in the middle of a swamp, in the middle of a lake, because I wanted to kind of be cheeky about that. I'm still very, very proud of that. Probably going to be the thing that will be remembered the most after I'm gone.
Well, I don't know. Maybe. I hope the project, I would really, you put a lot of work into that, and a lot of your own interests, like you put your soul into it by like all the little Easter eggs you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I hope this project goes exactly where you want to go, wherever that may be.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
If I can get my hands on a set one day, I would love to.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I was going to we're kind of coming up on that hour mark, but you talked about things, remembered by it. Gabby, I think unless you had another question, I was going to say, what are you currently working on, or what's in the future for you? Like, I know you mentioned you and the Daily Grail. I would love to, know a little bit about what's going on with that and kind of like what you're excited about in the future and like where people can find you and like that whole part of the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And the Daily Grail is one of the oldest, longest running paranormal news websites that you can find. I think that Greg started it in 1997.
Oh, wow.
which is really quite an achievement. We discussed some of that history of the Grail in one of our latest Behind the Grail videos that we put for our Patreon subscribers, and how when I jumped on board, first as a regular member and then as a contributor, we were still using HTML to write the news, and it was such a pain in the ass. And I kept begging Greg, let's move to Blogger or let's move to WordPress. I'm a designer. Yeah. I'm not a coder. But he was like, no. He was very hesitant and I understand it now, protective of the page. He didn't want to lose control of it by putting it in a third party's platform. Right. And now it's just, before there were more people that were writing the news, helping us out, and then also guest writers that would put articles occasionally. But nowadays it's just Greg and I, and we're trying to keep this ship afloating, in this turbulent times. And you mentioned AI. You will not find a friend of AI in me at all. Yeah. I despise it with all my heart. I feel it is genuinely one of our of the biggest threats to our society. Not because it's going to be like the Terminator, like it's not going to go back into the future to kill John Connor. If anything, it will go back into the future to drive Sarah Connor crazy, with fake news and fake AI imagery. That's how the AI is going to mess up with us. And also, not only that, but the way that it is being pushed by this group of oligarchs whose goal is just to, kick us out of work, drive everybody out to unemployment, amass obscene amounts of fortunes so they can pursue their crazy dreams to become immortal, upload their consciousness into this mainframe and live in this virtual paradise utopia while the rest of the world turns into a wasteland filled with only data centers, right? That's their colorful vision of the future, and I couldn't be in more disagreement. I keep thinking about the Ariel case in Rua, Zimbabwe. The message that the kids got. One of the kids says, "We are too technologed." That's the word that she used. But these entities didn't come here like saying, "Oh, you need to make better phones. You need to make virtual reality goggles." No, they said, "You need to take care of the planet, you dumb apes." Look at this paradise you live here. This is a jewel. Like all these astronauts who go out and get to see the planet Earth from a certain distance, and they all experience what is known as the overview effect, and say, this is an oasis that is, the only place we have in the vastness of the dark cosmos. But the problem is that it's probably like set and setting. The same experience that will make an astronaut appreciate the preciousness of Earth as an oasis that needs to be shared with everybody will make probably someone like Jeff Bezos of Elon Musk sees it as a resort, So, we need to start charging people a subscription just to be here in the Oasis, or we need to kick them out. So, okay, that was a long diatribe, but getting back getting back to the Grail, we want to keep writing articles. We want to keep making interviews for our YouTube channel. We're very slow about that because Greg is in Australia. I'm in Mexico, so sometimes making the schedules coincide is almost like the aligning of the planets. And it is an uphill battle because we are competing with people out there who don't give a crap about this, who only see it as a potential for clickbait, pushing for fake news, hoaxed images, hoax videos that are so easy now to fabricate using the AI slot machine. And also, like I've been trying to say, we're trying to provide nuance to these topics, not going through the whole skepticism and say, it's all BS, but also not falling into the believer trap. They'll say, we need to go against the skeptics because they are our enemies. No, sometimes the skeptics and the UFO or the paranormal people are on the same team, especially when it's about criticizing someone else's agenda. It's things that are being pushed into the narrative for ulterior motives like disclosure, or the AI stuff and all that. So I wish I could say, I'm working on people always keep asking me, when are you going to write a book? And my answer is when I have something original to say, and it's so difficult to find something because you're thinking about the phenomenon and you're thinking, I have this idea about what the phenomenon is or how it operates or what it could be. You go and grab a book written by John Keel in the 1960s. I said the same thing I was thinking about. Yeah. So what's the point? Yeah, I know there are people who don't care and they just write it as if they had come to that conclusion by themselves, but that's cheating. So that's why I am hesitant to actually think about writing something. Besides, despite I've written so many articles, I still don't see myself as a writer, which is kind of ironic. I've tried to see if I can find other projects like the Tarot. The Tarot, the project to me was the perfect balance between my artistic, graphic aspirations and also the paranormal passion, and also trying to use it my capacity as a writer, because I also had to come up with ideas for the text and whatnot. If I could come up with something like that, that would be great, but it's difficult. It's like I said, competing an uphill battle against people using AI imagery or writing books using AI and putting 500 slop books on Amazon. Even though even if they win $1 a book, they're still making a lot of money out of these shady forgeries. It's depressing. It's kind of, sometimes it's difficult to get the motivation to say, well, let's go and write another article about Bob Lazar, because why not? Which I just did. Last night I finished my latest rant about Lazar,
Sweet.
But that's I couldn't say, what's a store for me in the future. I mean, also the state of the world. Are we going to be in the around in the next 5 months?
Yeah,
I couldn't
that's
say for
something I've
certain.
been struggling with too. Like I'm looking to go back to school for another bachelor's, and like I'm just getting settled where I moved a few years ago, and it's like, can I even really make long-term plans right now? Is a very real fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I guess we need to, like you guys are doing right now, and I'm doing. If we can use our passion to keep us motivated just to get out of bed each morning,
Yeah.
one day at a time. I think that is probably is one way to properly use the interest in the paranormal. If it's something that helps you motivated enough to still get up in the morning, wash your teeth, do your bed,
Yeah.
wash the dishes, and also be nice to the other people, right? Because sometimes the paranormal makes trolls out of people, like we were saying, and if the paranormal doesn't help you try to become a better version of yourself, as I try to do with the luchador mask, then you need to take a serious look at that interest and your life, because maybe you need to find another path.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I'd like to end it right there if that's okay with everybody. That is great. Red Pill, where can people find you?
Thank you. Well, like I said, the Daily Grail is my main home, my main casa the internet, dailygrail.com. We also
have a Patreon I just signed up for while we were talking.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
So that's a thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We also have a YouTube channel. Everything there is for free. I also have my own web page. I don't know if it's a web page. Sometimes I think it's a portfolio. Sometimes I think it's just a repository of my doodles and a reminder of people where links to interviews like this one. Absurdbydesign.com, and that name, Absurd by Design, was definitely inspired by Jacques Vallée. So if everyone wants to check that out, you'll find my artwork, my designs, the cover designs that I made for the books of my friends, like Greg and Adam Gorightly and other people. So yeah, and also the social media. I guess the only social media I don't use is TikTok. But you can find me in Facebook. They can find me in Blue Sky. They can still find me in X Twitter, although I don't use it as often. And they can find me in Instagram. They can find me in Substack. It's almost like, you have to, as an artist, you have to blow your horn in all the avenues, to try to get noticed.
Right. Well, we hope that attention comes to you in all the best ways, and we really appreciate you coming on our show. You know what? We forgot. We can edit this in.
Oh, the charity. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, we always forget the charity.
We always forget that.
Yeah. Red Pill. I was actually really excited to talk about a charity that was not in the U.S. Can you tell us a little bit about the charity you chose?
Right. This is one of the many groups of people, of activists that are doing a really important work that is not only overlooked outside of Mexico, but it's also actively objected by the Mexican government. And this is the people who are looking for their missing loved ones. In the last 20 years, there has been over 130,000 people who have disappeared in Mexico due to cartel-related violence. We have families that are being looking for their missing children or their husbands or their spouses, whatever, for 10, 20 years, without knowing their whereabouts. Like, these are the people who actually envy the families who actually managed to find in some unmarked grave the remains of a human body. I actually wrote an article not too long ago about a Mexican novel that deals about this. The title of this novel is, in Spanish, is Raíz que no desaparece. It will be translated as root that is not missing, which deals about how many of these searching mothers, let's call them, they receive clues about the whereabouts of their children in dreams, almost like some kind of like communication from the beyond. And it's the one charity that I chose is the one that is led by this woman who has become a symbol of resistance in Mexico, Ceci Flores. She recently found, after 9 years, the remains of her son. Unjustly, she didn't find the whole body; just found scattered bones in some unmarked place in the middle of the nowhere. And I wanted to cast attention to people outside Mexico about this reality, because it is really a problem that is totally out of control, and that needs more attention and needs more awareness on people, that this is something that is happening. I remember 20 years ago or 30 years ago, people in the States learn about what was happening in Ciudad Juarez with working women that were disappearing, and then they turn around dead. Las muertas de Juarez, they used to call them. Even Jennifer Lopez made a movie about that back in the days. But nowadays, this is not something that is being discussed. And that's why I felt it was important, of all the charities I could have named, let's bring light to this problem. This is the reality of Mexico that people often overlook.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we will put some links in the show notes. And if you have any links with in particular that you find and would like to share, send them over to us and we'll make sure they get into the show notes. But yeah, we absolutely want to raise awareness of that, especially in the States. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Eternal Void, but with Jazz Podcast. We really appreciate everybody listening today. Check out the show notes for all of the links to Red Pill stuff, and we hope that you will support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and all of that stuff that you hear on everything that you listen to. If you're feeling so inclined, we do have a Ko-Fi where you can wad up $1 bill or two and throw it up the internet pipes to us to help us keep the lights on. Not required, but always appreciated. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Gracias.